Welcome to Thriving Entrepreneur with your host, Steve Kidd, third-generation minister and 30-year business coach. Listen in as amazing, world-changing authors, speakers, and coaches share their struggles and victories. And hear from best-selling authors' insight into how you too can live your life as a thriving entrepreneur.
This is Steve. Welcome to Thriving Entrepreneur today. Thank you for being here with me. I appreciate you so much. I'm so grateful to be here with you as we talk today about training you for success. What are the kind of things that you can do? And maybe these are things that you want to learn, and maybe there's things that you need to be training yourself for success, or maybe there's even things that you need to be training others for success. Training for success is the key to continue to grow. There's an old saying that says that when a fruit is ripe, it's the first stage of it rotting. We want to stay green and growing and alive and healthy and vibrant. And that includes training ourselves for success. That includes training others with what we know. Take everything that you've done, pass it forward to the person that's 1 step, 5 steps, 1,000 steps behind you. Keep passing it forward. Let them know where you found the special stepping stones through the swamp that you just came through to be able to really succeed in life and do the things that have allowed you to now be where you are. And together we can all be thriving entrepreneurs. I'm so excited for that. I have 4 really amazing guests that are each of them teaching their own thing that they have available for you, and I hope you'll check those out, but also to hopefully inspire you for the kind of things that you can, should, and would be able to do to be able to train others for success so that you continue to grow, you continue sharing what you know, and you pass it forward to make the difference that only you can make in the world today and live as a thriving entrepreneur. So today, let's talk about training you for success and all the things that you can do as we join with our 4 guests that we have here today, and we talk to you about how to live as a thriving entrepreneur. With that said, let's jump right into our first guest here on Thriving Entrepreneur. Join me in welcoming Ryan Estes. Hey, Ryan, how you doing today?
Doing great, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing really good, thanks. So first off, tell us a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
Well, hopefully I show up refreshed and clean. But in short, I work in podcasting. I have a podcast booking agency called Kitcaster, and I have a podcast advertising marketplace called Wildcast.
I love that. Tell us a little bit more about Kitcaster and the kind of things that you do for people.
You bet. There's pretty distinctive overlap between the 2 brands. So Kitcaster, we work with funded startup founders, entrepreneurs with exits, and C-suite executives, and we book them on the world's top podcasts. So we're really interested in kind of the synergy between product, audience, podcast host in particular. So what we found in working in Kitcaster is that we believe that like niche podcasts are the most undervalued audiences on planet Earth. Now, we all know that podcast audiences are possibly the best possible audience for marketers. The conversion rates are through the roof. It's unbelievable. But largely the studies are based on big shows. If you're talking about the Rogans, the Hubermans, and the True Crimes of the world, is where most of the advertising spend is. And that's largely because of distribution. It's much harder to aggregate a lot of podcasts that have smaller audiences, so to speak, into a cohesive campaign. And that's why we built Wildcast. So Wildcast is specifically for B2B, SaaS, tech, and business, both audiences, brands, and podcasters. A really solid, let's say, fintech podcast might have 10,000 monthly listeners. So for big advertising dollars, they're not going to look at that. But what we can do is aggregate all the fintech podcast audiences and shows and deliver incredible value to brands that are looking for very specific audiences. So in a sense, my world here is podcasting, but also generally, venture-backed startups, SMBs, and even like kind of the ubiquitous enterprise SaaS tools that we all use every day.
I love that. So let's talk specifically for a few minutes about a person who wants to start a podcast. What is the one thing that you wish people knew that they almost never do when they start off with their podcast?
To be kind to themselves. I'd like to say that if you're going to start a podcast, then give yourself 100 episodes before you judge it. I think we can all judge ourselves a little bit harshly. And I'm sensitive to that because in a former life, I was performing musician. And I remember stepping into the studio the first time and listening to my voice and being absolutely shocked and in horror of how I sounded. And perhaps that could happen for podcasters too. There's a rubber meets the road moment when you hear yourself and see yourself on video for the first time. Maybe that's changed. We all have little recording studios in our pockets, but I would say don't judge yourself too harshly when you get going.
I love that. When it comes to advertising, because we all think about radio advertising, and most of us are still old enough. I mean, I suppose maybe there's a few of the younger listeners that have never listened to radio, but I think most everybody still has listened to radio. And you think about the ads that you used to hear on there and, the kind of revenue that you make from it. But it's different with podcasting. No matter how big you are, they really don't get paid that same kind of way. Can you kind of explain to us in a little more detail how advertisers work with you when you're a podcast?
Absolutely. And I'll speak kind of simplified terms. There's kind of two different kinds of advertising in podcasts. One would be a digitally inserted ad. This is going to sound a lot like radio, which is you're listening to a podcast here with Steve Kidd, and then out of nowhere comes an advertisement for, I shudder to speak, Wingstop. I can't escape that commercial. That's a digitally inserted ad. Or Coca-Cola or Geico or something like that. And generally speaking, podcasters make an order of magnitude less money on those kind of podcast ads. But what Wildcast does is post-read ads. And these are the advertisements that might be digitally inserted, but they're actually read or performed by the podcast host themselves. And it's based largely on that podcast host or creator or YouTuber, their personal experience, where they're able to share an anecdote, an experience about the product. And so you're really able to leverage the trust that the creators built with their audience. And that's what Wildcast does. That's what we're interested in, is providing real value for podcast hosts that are interested in this brand that wants to advertise so that they can make an honest and authentic endorsement to their audience. And when, that overlap is done correctly, then you really see like a lot of adaptation or I should say adoption and engagement from those podcast audiences.
And so do they read those live, or are they still kind of pre-recorded and then dropped in, or how do most of your people do it?
It's probably 50-50 split. Some folks like to kind of ad lib on the fly, which I'm a big fan of. I'm a big fan of Big Bill Burr, and I think he does some of the most genius ad reads of all time, and he just kind of like bakes them in. But other folks will do insertion, where they'll sit down, they'll make a fantastic, ad spot, and then they put it in post. And podcasters have a bunch of great tools that they can actually insert that advertisement in their entire back catalog. So there's advantages to that, for podcasters. One is you get to capitalize on your entire back catalog when you're advertising with Wildcast. And also when the end of the term is up, you can replace that position with other inventory, with other advertisers, whereas it baked in ads, now these might be in your back catalog forever. So it just depends on how the podcasters want to do it. We're relatively loose. One thing coming into podcasting as a podcaster myself is like, we really believe and respect in the creative vision of each individual creator with their show. So we're not too heavy-handed, and we help kind of guide brands into understanding that if you're really looking for those conversions, let's put the trust in the podcaster's hands.
Let's talk just a little bit more about the conversions because, if you're a new podcast, especially if you're that pre 100, unless you for some reason have paid to get into syndication, um, you know, even 1,000 listeners per episode might be a real stretch. I mean, some of them, even 100 would be a real stretch. Can they actually legitimately make money in those early days, or do they need to be to a certain level before it's even realistic?
Yeah, with Wildcast, we actually don't discriminate by downloads at all. Now, that's to say that it is a CPM model. So you get paid per 1,000 downloads. So if we're, averaging 25, 26 bucks and you've got 100 downloads, you're making some money, but you're not going to make a lot of money. So what we do on Wildcast is we want to help support podcasters that are in the process of growing their audience. So there are opportunities, and opportunities are advertising opportunities that are based on CPM. So if you got 1,000 listeners, I actually think that's phenomenal. And the CPM is 25, you make 25 bucks, for doing the ad read for those 1,000 listeners. And, in some cases, having the endorsement of a fantastic brand and getting some reps at doing ad reads and kind of familiarizing yourself might be worth the 25 bucks right there. There might be a value add. But in addition to opportunities, we also have offers. And what these are, podcast specific service providers, tools, products that will help them grow their show. So if a podcaster signs up at Wildcast, they're going to see immediately a bunch of offers, maybe a half a dozen offers of tools that'll help them grow their show. And these are usually at either a deep discount or have a lot of added features that you couldn't get without being on a Wildcast. And for the most part, that has nothing to do with us at all. Rather, we're just happy to be kind of a resource to help podcasters grow their audience. We realize there's great value in the size of an audience, but we are really focused on the relevance of an audience. So there's a proportionality between relevance. So the more relevant you are to the brand, and the more relevant the brand is to your audience, the more you get paid. But of course, having your audience size is going to be an amplifier of that, and give you orders of magnitude that you're able to earn. So it's in our best interest ultimately to help podcasters on their way building their audience.
That's awesome. So talk to us specifically about working with you. What does a person need to do to be able to start working with you?
You bet. Go wildcast.com is our website. If you're a podcaster, you can scroll down to the footer and see, there's an opportunity to it says, I believe it says register now. So you can register your podcast. Really takes a couple of clicks and you're in. We have a little onboarding email series for you to get to know kind of Wildcast and what we're doing. So it's super easy for podcasters. For brands, same thing. There's a button that says apply now. If you're really looking to ramp up your marketing, particularly with untouched high value audiences in a specific niche, we like to think that very technical audiences are kind of a needle in a haystack. You're going to need to use different tools and techniques. And right now, Wildcast is the only place that you can find these niche audiences. So same thing, brands jump on the website, go wildcast.com, click apply now, and we'll be in touch with them.
Well, I love that. We didn't even talk about brands. So talk about that for just a couple of minutes. What kind of a reach can a new brand expect to get if they jump on with their product, good, or service?
You bet. I think when we surmised all of the podcasts on the platform, we've got about 2,300 podcasts on the platform. And probably important to mention too, that we're totally agnostic to your hosting provider for podcasters, totally agnostic to your other network affiliations, totally fine. They can really just look at us as an additional sales arm. for their show. And we play nicely with everybody. Oh, shoot. I forgot where I was going with that. We're talking about brands.
Brands, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So as far as brands, we're talking about, I remember now, we're talking about reach. So those 2,300 podcasts, I think it's about 140 plus million monthly listeners in summation, if we're looking at the whole shebang. But that's not what we do at all. What we do is we get highly relevant, targeted podcasts. So generally speaking, it's for brands that are looking at, 500,000 monthly listeners to a couple million is a great place to begin. I believe that podcast advertising is ubiquitous enough. We do have some clients that have never done podcast advertising, but generally speaking, they have. And so what they're doing now is they're looking for opportunities to laser target where their ideal buyer is, where their ICP is. They want to focus on specific audiences. So we're able to kind of provide really unprecedented audience information for these podcasts based on the relevance that the brand is going to experience with the host.
That is amazing. Oh, I love that so much. We could talk for another 20 or 30 hours about that as well. Do though give us the URL again real quick before we go.
You bet. Thanks, Steve. It's gowildcast.com.
Ryan, thanks so much for being a guest with us here on the show today.
I sure appreciate it, Steve. Have a great day.
Podcasting is one of the best ways to get your message out, to meet with people. Being a guest on podcasts and sharing what you have, and having a podcast of your own and sharing your expertise and your knowledge. One of the greatest possibilities we have these days, and it's a great way for you to share who you are, to train others for success. And as you learn how to do that, it can become a skill that you also can learn to be even more successful in all that you do. It's an amazing way to do it. And then, of course, you've got folks like Ryan who can come in with the things that they have and help you be able to advance all that you're doing in the world. And together we can all live and thrive and succeed in a powerful way as we all live together as thriving entrepreneurs. We've got a jam-packed show today, so we're going to jump right in to our next guest. Join me in welcoming Don Booth. Hey, Don, how you doing today?
Great. How are you doing, Steve?
Oh, I'm doing so well. Thanks for asking. So first off, tell us a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
Well, we started a company, myself, actually, American Institute of Non-Destructive Testing. So we're a private technical college. We specialize in vocational training for NDT, or non-destructive testing, which most people really don't. When you say plumber or electrician or HVAC contractor, everyone seems to know what those skilled trades are. But non-destructive testing is a trade that a lot of people haven't heard of.
So can you tell us a little bit about what that is and what kind of things you do?
Absolutely. So, our company, I founded it back in 2013. And I had worked in the field of non-destructive testing for about 8 years. And I found that there was a need for the ability to bring it into the future. So I created the first online, hands-on hybrid training format for the industry. And non-destructive testing is using digital radiography, film radiography, might kind of in a layman's terms of taking x-rays, right? Taking a radiograph, ultrasound, magnetic particle, eddy current, different types of inspection methods for bridges, pipelines, aircraft, spacecraft, refineries. When you're building a football stadium, all the support beams that are welded together need to be inspected for quality control. We do a lot of training for Lockheed Martin, Boeing, SpaceX, Blue Origin, the Royal Air Force of New Zealand, the Royal Air Force of England order our online digital radiography training. And really, all these different inspection modalities are used for quality control. I mean, after SpaceX launches a rocket and it lands, they're going to have to test it to see if there's any stresses that the launch caused that maybe created a crack or a fatigue area or some problem in the structure so it doesn't fail.
Such an important thing, and not really something that you're right. I mean, we never really think about it, but we drive across the bridge and we just assume that it's going to be okay. That's cool. So, do most construction projects have that and it's just something we don't think about, or is it mostly only just, the more like commercial and larger type of projects like that?
Yeah, it's not really in like your home building or smaller building projects. It's more in structural, right? Where you have a big structural steel or during the manufacturing, so it's pre-use, right? You're building a pipeline, you're building a structure, you're building a spacecraft, and you test the components that are being manufactured prior to assembly, right? To make sure that they're sound and they're gonna stay together and they're gonna hold up. And then after use, because you'll get cyclical fatigue or vibratory fatigue. If you've ever been walking on a big bridge and you can kind of feel that rumble of the cars, that slow vibration as cars come by, well, that is cyclical fatigue. It's just a slow vibratory over and over and over and can create cracks and problems. We also deal with corrosion in pipelines, refineries, paper mills. Of course, there's 66,000 bridges in the country that need inspection, and it just never seems to end.
So besides, large municipalities and large companies, what other kinds of maybe smaller businesses and things that we don't think of do you also work with?
Well, it's not a lot of small ones. Our company wears two hats. We have a non-destructive testing technology certificate program where students graduate. It's an 8-month program, 7 months online. Then they come to our facility in Minnesota and train on all the equipment for 3 weeks. And then we place them in a career as an inspector technician for non-destructive testing. We have 93% placement of our graduates. So we educate people, get them a new job, a new career, and in a rewarding field that pays well. And then we also do training for all these major companies, employees that want to expand their training. Let's say they're doing ultrasound and they're doing radiography already, but they want to do magnetic particle or liquid penetrant or visual or eddy current, all these different modalities that we use to inspect different structures. Then we train their employees for that too. So it's like, I guess we always say that you never hear about the bridge that didn't collapse or the plane that didn't come out of the sky. And that's because of what we do to make it a safer world for non-destructive testing.
That's really cool. What kind of previous experience or previous schooling does a person need to be able to take your training program?
Really, all that's required is a high school diploma. We have a lot of people that just come out of high school and start in a career in non-destructive testing. We also have a lot of people in their 30s and 40s that maybe have been doing another career that just, they've reached the top, or they're just tired of what they've been doing. Maybe they've had a marketing career. We've had pretty much all the way across the spectrum, from a bartender to saying, hey, I want to finally get away from this and have a skilled trade. I think, as everyone knows, for years, people were told they had to have a college education, right? Go to a 4-year degree, go get your 4-year degree, spend 6 years in college. I think the pendulum is finally swinging back to the trades. There was a Wall Street Journal article just a few weeks ago that said Gen Z is fast becoming the tool belt generation, because people, you might get your job in marketing or copywriting replaced by AI, but you're not going to get replaced when you have a skilled trade that needs that human touch to go out and inspect these items in our industries.
Very, very true. Well, talk to us a little bit more about how we would get started if we wanted to take your training.
So our website is trainingndt.com. And really, we kind of own the first page of Google. So if you just Google NDT training or NDT schools, you'll see the American Institute of Non-Destructive Testing. And some of the exciting things that we have Gulfstream come and hire our graduates, and we have graduates working at Boeing and SpaceX and companies all over the country. And it's nice because you get a really good job with benefits and health insurance and paid time off and upward mobility. So the more you learn, the more you can earn. And it's a skilled trade. I think everyone hears about infrastructure, right? And how that's always in need of maintenance and everything. So trainingndt.com or Google the American Institute of Non-Destructive Testing. We have a private campus. In 2020, I bought a small hotel and closed it to the public and put our corporate offices below and student housing above. And then just this last December, I built a brand new training facility adjacent to that hotel. So people travel from all over the world, actually. We've had people from Norway and parts of Africa, and they'll fly over, stay in our corporate student housing, and walk downstairs and just walk out into the laboratory and classrooms and put their hands onto the equipment and learn how to do the inspections.
That is so amazing. So please do again, give us the URL for where we need to go.
Yeah, training NDT for non-destructive testing. So that's trainingndt.com, and it's the American Institute of Non-Destructive Testing.
And again, I know you told us earlier, but how long do the courses last?
It's 7 months of online, followed by 3 weeks at our facility. And the reason I designed the school that way is because people have lives, they have bills. Life is real out there. And sometimes when you're having to change careers, you can't just, if you've got a family and you're in your 30s, you can't just pick up and move somewhere and go to college for a couple of years. So the vast majority of our students study for the 7 months online while they have their existing jobs. So you can keep your existing job, study for 7 months, and then travel to Minnesota and stay in our private student housing and graduate and be interviewed before you graduate. I'd say probably 80% of our students have a job before they even leave graduation.
Amazing. That is so cool. Well, Don, thanks so much for spending some time telling us about that. I hope some people will look into your courses. Thanks for spending some time with us here on the show today.
All right. Appreciate it, sir. Have a good day.
Even though I knew about this type of testing, I had no idea there was a training program for it. And I was really interested to find out about it. And I don't know about you, but maybe you're listening and maybe you've been looking for that right new cool thing that you want to do. What a great opportunity for you to learn a skill set that is highly in demand and really, I bet, a lot of fun to do. And with that, you can be training yourself for success. You can learn a skill that you can then even know well enough to be able to pass on to others and make that difference in this world that only you can make as you're living as a thriving entrepreneur. So with that said, let's jump right in to our next guest here on Thriving Entrepreneur. Join me in welcoming Dr. Jonathan Bakhtari. Hey, Jonathan, how you doing today?
Hi, thank you so much. I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. First off, tell us a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
Steve, well, I'm a physician by trade and practice medicine, and eventually moved on to administrative stuff. And subsequently, we just started these companies, serial companies involving somewhat related to healthcare, but mainly involved in the technology space as it relates to those. So that's what we've been doing for the last 14 years.
So what kind of things does your health technology company focus on?
We originally started in preventative health and wellness and keeping people healthy. We invested a lot in vaccine medicine, sort of before even COVID. And we developed technologies to make it accessible to people originally locally where we are, and then now nationally through our other companies, so people can go online and order the kind of laboratory testing or other testing or services they need, literally at just a few clicks of the mouse. That's been our goal, to make healthcare accessible by leveraging technology.
So I'm really interested about this. I think a couple of tests that I've got to go drive to get that I'd love to be able to do from my home or facilitate through this. So let's talk about it. What kind of tests are ones that you can do?
Yeah,
Stuff like that.
pretty much like if, our website is enationaltesting.com. So you can just go on that website. You can get anything from a cholesterol test, a men's health package, a prostate test, STD testing. You can get sort of food allergies and different types of allergy testing. And basically what we do is we've contracted out with thousands of laboratories across the country, where you basically order from us. You get a donor pass, and then you can walk into any one of thousands of laboratories and show them your pass and get your test done, and it'll show up on our system in a couple days usually. So it's a really low friction kind of way of getting your testing done. So literally, there's probably something a half a mile from where you're sitting if you're in any small, medium to large town in the country. So in 3 clicks, you'd get your lab, and you could just walk in, get it done, and get the results.
I love that. So the concept isn't remote like I was thinking it is, just kind of helping facilitate getting the testing place that's closest to you. And you help them also save money then, I'm assuming.
Well, we in a way it does, because we have, great pricing, and for most people they have deductibles, or they may not even have insurance, or if they have insurance, they have deductibles. So with our method, we just charge a really aggressive cash pricing, but often it's really, when you factor the way that deductibles and everything else, co-pays, we think it's a really attractive alternative.
I love that. So, does a person typically have the doctor that is telling them they need to get the test and then they come to you, or is it more people that are
Well,
curious?
so we have actually licensed doctors in all 50 states who will write the order and follow up with the result if it's abnormal. But this is really meant to supplement your healthcare, not to replace it. So you still see your doctor, but in between visits, or if you want to find out where your cholesterol is, or let's say you need an STD test or a food allergy, you're supposed to then hopefully then take the results and work with your primary care doctor to advance any other healthcare issues. So it's really a supplement to your current healthcare, but I think it reduces some barriers that people have. Like often people won't even get a cholesterol test because it's such a chore to get an appointment, go seen, get it drawn, come back. And so we try to facilitate that and reduce barriers so people can get the testing they need. Often then, if it's abnormal, they can then seek medical attention too. So if it's you have a high cholesterol, or you get a allergy test that's concerning, it might stimulate you to go ahead and seek the proper medical attention.
So, like, for example, folks that have know they have diabetes, you could help them order their whatever
Yes.
it is every 3 months to 6 month
Right.
A1C
Right.
test.
Yep, you can get your hemoglobin A1C. You can get a fasting fasting sugar. Again, obviously, we'd want you to take that information and convey it to your primary care doctor. But it can give you information in between visits, for example, or it could stimulate you to find out, you have diabetes, for example. So if you're concerned, if it runs in your family, and if you have not been seen by a doctor, that might stimulate you to go in and be seen. So we're hoping that it's just another window that people could take control of their healthcare.
I absolutely love that. I mean, I have been noticing lately that healthcare is moving more and more towards concierge and cash pay, or that kind of a thing, service. Are you seeing that in the industry as well?
Yeah, we are, but unfortunately, yeah, it's that can be expensive too if you get the concierge sort of VIP medicine. Yeah, obviously people who can afford it, that's an attractive possibility. But for the people who just don't have the wherewithal to pay the additional amount of money, this can also supplement, that kind of, it's almost like having a little bit of concierge without actually having some of the costs associated with getting that sort of concierge medicine.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I just know a lot of people are looking at other alternatives for
Hmm.
how high monthly health insurance is and different ways that they can bring
Hmm.
those costs down. So we're all looking for
Yeah.
that every day, I know.
Yeah. Well, that's why we really have aggressive pricing. Most of our tests are very affordable. And when you factor in, like I said earlier, co-pays and deductibles, I think it becomes a very attractive alternative.
Absolutely. I love the concept. So, um, let's talk about the people that want to try to use your service but shouldn't, just to kind of give, that other side of the fence. Who are the people that really they need to go, through the normal process of going to their doctor and getting that?
Well, I think everybody should go through the normal process. I mean, everybody should have a primary care doctor. Everybody should get, yearly physicals, especially if indicated. They should get all the screening tests. So we think this is simply a supplement. So I think everyone should go through the normal channels, and this should not be a replacement for it. But, I have a podcast, Bacteria MD. I kind of go over some of the stuff and other topics on it. But generally speaking, we think this adds to your healthcare management, hopefully.
I love that. Thank you for clarifying that. So let's talk about some trends. What are some of the things that are happening in healthcare, that are kind of new
Mm.
and upcoming that we aren't used to?
I think the biggest trend in healthcare, and I think if you read the Wall Street Journal or anything else, is this sort of consolidation of healthcare and this corporatization of healthcare. There's a very less and less doctors in private practice. 20 years ago, only 25% of doctors were employees, and the rest were in private practice. Now, today, the number is reversed. 75% of doctors are now working for corporations, and only 25% are in private practice. So the landscape has changed. There's been consolidation with equity firms buying medical groups and Wall Street firms buying medical groups and hospitals and chains. So the biggest change I think people have seen in the last 5 years and certainly 10 years is this sort of consolidation to uh, corporate delivery of healthcare, which has obviously some benefits and it has of course, some downsides.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think we've gotten beyond the point where that relationship and really knowing your doctor and some of those kind of things that some of us that are a little older, remember but don't necessarily experience a lot these days? Do you think that's kind of gone away these days, or is there still some of that happening out there that I don't know about?
Yeah, well, again, we only have 25% of doctors that are now, in their own private practice. So statistically, you're not likely to see a doctor that has his own practice, which by definition means you're not going to probably have the same doctor longitudinally because, doctors switch jobs, the corporations are bought out, taken over, and changes are made. And also with the advent of nurse practitioners and PAs, uh, now delivering a big portion of primary care. So even if you do get to see your doctor occasionally, and more than likely, some of the visits are going to be sprinkled in with PAs and nurse practitioners. So yeah, all of that impacts that sort of old world, you know, um, this is my doctor, he knows me, she knows me. I think one of the side effects of doctors becoming simply employees is that. Also, what healthcare package you're on, if you change insurance, or even if your insurance internally changes and they no longer contract with the group that you were seeing last year. So when you combine that with everything else I mentioned earlier, it's very unlikely you could have a long-term relationship with a MD, just for those 4 or 5 reasons. So I think your initial hypothesis is correct, that is sort of a casualty of some of the changes we've talked about.
Well, and let's go back to some of the really cool things, especially what you're doing. I love the concept of what you're doing because, having the ability to be able to know what kind of test you're getting, know where to go, know what it's going to cost you, all of those kind of things. I think there's some real benefits, but don't let me put words in your mouth. Give us just kind of an overview of what all the benefits your company can bring to the individual.
Well, I think the ability to get involved in your own healthcare, take some control over it, and remove some of the obstacles people have from getting tested or getting the right insight into what's going on with them. So even if you're having no symptoms at all, but routinely get your cholesterol and maybe your thyroid, depending on your age, especially if you're between visits, I think is a great idea. You basically get involved in your own healthcare a little bit more, take a little bit more control. We often hear, "Oh, I've been wanting to get my cholesterol tested or my thyroid tested, but it was a 3-month wait to see my primary care doctor, and I just changed insurance." And, people come with all sorts of excuses not to get checked out. Or if someone's, for example, sexually active and they want to know their status, their HIV or other status. This is an opportunity with just a few clicks. You can go ahead and find out that information. So we think it offers people an opportunity to take more control of their healthcare.
Absolutely love that. Well, do give us the URL again where we can, use your service and find the testing place closest to us.
Yeah, the website is enationaltesting.com, enationaltesting.com. And also my podcast, Bakhtari MD, on YouTube and Spotify and everywhere else. That's Baktari MD, where we go over this and other helpful hints, both in medical and in business, about some of the more pertinent topics. We, for example, discuss some of the changes in healthcare in some of my podcasts, as well as other things that might help people with healthcare issues, as well as business-focused issues too.
I absolutely love that. Dr. Bakhtari, thanks so much for spending some time with us here on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a big honor. Thank you.
Amazing. I couldn't even believe it when I found out that some of the tests that these days, living in central Kansas, can be a long drive to be able to just go and have, a basic test taken care of. They can actually come right here to my house. I can do them and have them done right here where I am. Very, very cool thing. And I am so excited to see that doctors like Dr. Bakhtari are coming together and doing those kind of things so that we can really, truly be able to have success in our lives by not having to have to spend all that time and having the things come to us. It's really an incredible world that we're coming to. And in that, we can have that success and we can be the person that we're meant to be as we live as a thriving entrepreneur. With that said, let's jump into our next guest. Join me in welcoming Gigi Sabat. Hey, Gigi, how you doing today?
Fantastic and honored to be here with you today, Steve.
Oh, so glad to have you here with us. First off, tell us a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
Absolutely. Great question. So essentially, my name is Regeline, but I prefer Gigi, and I'm a motivational keynote speaker in the Life Service Center of America.
All right. Tell us more about your company and the kind of things that they do in the world.
Great question. So Life Service Center of America essentially it has two different aspects. It has the coaching programs and the coaching services that we offer to folks. And then we also have what is called the Business Service Navigator, which allows our members to locate the services that they need in a reasonable time. So essentially what would happen is they have free access to it, our members, and they can actually locate that themselves in our library. And it's free, Steve.
Oh, we all love free. Absolutely. What kind of services do you have in there?
Yes, great question. So essentially, again, our members, they can actually access all of our programs via the library. So it's essentially similar. You go into an in-person store, except here it's an e-commerce business. So now they have what is called the product or the program on the virtual platform, and they can actually browse through and see what would be best for them, or what they believe is best, that fits their needs, similar to when you go to a store. And so very, very similar here. But one of the things that I love, again, is that with our programs, we do provide motivational programs and courses. And again, our programs are designed to assist folks with achieving their goals.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about some of the speaking that you do. Talk to us about, the kind of speaking events that both you put on, as well as the kind of speaking things you like to do.
Absolutely. Great question. And so essentially in regards to speaking, yes, I do speak at other events as well. And I do host my own events as well. And so let me backtrack here a little bit. And I'll tell you this, Steve. So almost a few years ago, I actually lost my life, death by strangulation in a domestic violence relationship. After everything that happened, I stepped into God's purpose for my life, and I launched podcasts. I launched a book, and God also led me to host various events. I mean, it started off with domestic violence and sexual assault, topics that I'm a survivor of, but then he also led me to host them on various subjects, you name it, and we haven't stopped since. And so when we talk about the events that we host, literally that's just us listening to him and what he needs us to do here. And we just haven't stopped since. And again, when you love what you do, it's no longer work.
Oh, I love that so much. So what is the next few events that you have coming up?
Yes, so the next event that we have coming up here this Friday is actually the Alzheimer's Disease Conference. That one is at 5 p.m. Eastern. It's a virtual summit. We just wrapped up our Global Epilepsy Conference, and we also just wrapped up our Global Superpower Conference and our Leadership Conference as well that we do annually. And in person, we have our Global Warriors Conference coming up here. And we have a few other events, Steve. We have the Global Stuttering Conference and the Global Health and Wellness Conference as well. Those are online.
Love those so much. All right, well, let's dive more into Gigi. What is the thing that, if you could just talk about one thing the rest of your life, what's that number one thing in your life?
It would be in alignment with my word of the year, which is serve. And when you love, again, what you do, it's no longer work. I can do this all day, Steve. And I love it. And so essentially, and here's the thing. I've been doing this my entire life, right? This is nothing new. I love helping people. That's nothing new. But I will tell you this, when you almost lose your life, you start seeing from a different lens. And not just that, you're able to understand folks from their place of pain than ever before.
Yeah, for sure. What is the thing that you know now that is just so clear that you wish would have been that clear, 10, 15 years ago?
Oh my goodness, I can't tell you enough. And I have it sitting here in front of me right now. It's called the Overcoming Heart Blocks book, Inspiring Stories for Healing from Trauma. So when we talk about this book, it's a collaborative book that I did with amazing individuals from all over the world who came forward in regards to their own heart block. And my own mother, Steve, she came forward about her own heart block as well. And like I said, in regards to the trauma component as well. And so when we talk about this, subjects, not just sexual assault, right? It's not just domestic violence. It's not just human trafficking. It's so much more than that. There's so many other factors, so many various components in regards to where this can stem from, this heart block, right? And so we have to face it head on. And so how do I know that? Because like I said, I've been there. And so literally having to face it, right? Having to face what happened. So I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier, but I sexually assaulted when I was 8 and again as an adult. So again, these are the conversations that we have to have, as difficult as it may be. And mind you, Steve, I was an introvert, and I'll never forget what my friend said. He said, "You need to share your story, Gigi. It may help someone." He didn't say that it would, Steve. He said that it may.
Very true. But it's not ours to decide what the outcome is. It's just ours purely to put the message out there and let the results be what God wants them to be.
Absolutely. But then you're also, again, as you're sharing it, you have to face it. You have to face the trauma.
As we come through the traumas, they become a part of us. It's healing is kind of one of those weird words because we'd like to have something where it was just erased. God came in with a great big sponge and just kind of cleaned it up like you do, messes on the counter or whatever, but it doesn't really work that way. It kind of more integrates into who you are. So what is one or two really cool things that you know about yourself now that you've overcome some of those things?
I would say now I'm an ambivert, so that's essentially an introvert and an extrovert, right? So I'm both, right? And I would say on the other side, in regards to the trauma, it's and in one word, someone asked me, I would tell you this: it's peace, right? And actually being able to experience that. I mean, just what's on the other side. I mean, and if you were to tell me that I would be able to experience that, I would tell you, really? I didn't even think that was possible.
I have a fun question I love to ask folks that are in your space. What is your definition of joy? Not happiness, but joy.
Of joy. That is such a great question, Steve. And I'm just getting excited here. Joy, oh my goodness. It's what I feel for example, when I go to the beach, just literally just how it feels. It's beautiful. It's peace. It's peaceful. It's exciting. It's exhilarating. So much emotion when you just even not just being physically present at the beach, but also just looking at the view. Oh my goodness.
Oh, I absolutely love the beach. I remember the first time when I had first moved out west and we came across this area of the ocean. It happens to be in a city called Depot Bay, Oregon. Doesn't really matter, but the waves were just so incredible. And we pulled off to the side and we were just sitting there watching the waves. And I realized that I could probably sit in a little chair and just sit there and watch the waves for the rest of my life. It's probably good that I don't live there.
Wow. So you get it. Do you?
Oh, I absolutely do. So before I let you go, though, what I want to know is give us some information about how people can work with you.
Absolutely. So they can find me on LinkedIn. So that's Regeline Sabat. They can also locate me as Gigi Sabat. So it's Regeline Gigi Sabat. That's how it appears. And then also on our website, you can reach out to us via support. So that's the contact us page on our website. That's Life Service Center of America, LLC.com.
Life Service Center of America, LLC.com.
Correct.
Perfect. I love it. Well, before I let you go, give us some words of encouragement about how great life can be.
Absolutely. Life is just like beauty, right? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So life is truly what you make it. And you can essentially go throughout this lifetime with negative self-talk. But I want to encourage you and remind you to really shift that and shift it from negative self-talk to positive self-talk. And remember that you matter, your voice matters, your love, God is with you, and whomever you believe in, higher power is with you, that you're not alone. One of my favorite verses is Joshua 1:9. It states, "Haven't I commanded you to be strong and courageous? Do not be afraid or discouraged, for your Lord your God is with you wherever you go." And again, and I also want to remind your folks here that it's important to shift your mindset from a negative mindset to a positive mindset and maintain what is called a resilient mindset. And also too, we will face challenges throughout this lifetime. That is inevitable. And you cannot foresee it, right? Sometimes you cannot foresee it. And so I want to encourage you that just because you've overcome one challenge, that again, other challenges may happen, but to keep moving forward, to not give up, and remember who's with you, remember whose you are. And also too, and I want to remind you to just hold on to faith and keep moving forward. And again, you do not have to do it alone. You're not alone, and don't give up.
Absolutely. Well, Gigi, thanks so much for spending some time with us here on the show today.
Absolutely. It's such an honor, Steve. Thank you for having me.
And of course, what show on training for success would be complete without having talked to somebody about all the cool things that the coaches are doing in this world, the amazing, incredible marketplaces that they're bringing out, and opening up their Rolodexes like Gigi's doing to be able to help you find the services you need, find the help you need, get the training and the advancement and the kind of stuff that you need in order to really truly live and love and thrive in the space that you are meant to succeed and fill in this world. What a great way. I hope that in listening to all of these guests that you've come up with some ideas of how you can train you for success, how you can find success in your own life. Maybe it's one of the products we talked about. Maybe it's a service that you need to now offer. Maybe it's some innovative breakthrough kind of thing that you do. I remember I was in a coaching session not that long ago with my coach, and I realized that I was doing for free something that coach was teaching, and I just did it so happenstantially. It was just so regularly a part of how I show up in the world that that I was doing it without ever being trained how to do it. And there's some opportunities in there that I can possibly charge for it or not and continue just blessing the world with it. But it's in that sharing of who you are. And that was the important part of it, is learning to be able to see the kind of things that can and should be done and then get that third-party validation. And that, of course, is one of the most amazing things you can do as you're training yourself for success. And so then with that, you can reiterate the thing that I tell you every single week. By knowing that you are uniquely brilliant, you were created for a purpose, and that the world truly does need you. We appreciate it so much when you show up in the world, when you be the person you're meant to be, when you get it done, when you train you for success, and you train others to succeed, and you learn from the trainings of others, and it just becomes this ever-growing cycle of exciting, growing opportunity that makes all the difference in the world, makes this world such a better place. I love it when stuff like that happens. It's so cool to get to be just a tiny part of it and then bring them to you here on the show and share with you ways that you can train you for success, ways that you can do things a little differently, and yes, share with you ways that you can then take that cool stuff that's you and put it out into the world in book form and all the other things that we as a marketing company do to be able to help you be the authority that you are and be recognized for how powerful and cool you are. I hope that you'll take all of that to heart today. I hope that you learn some things and that your mind is filled with all kinds of stuff that you can do now that can really make that difference that you're meant to make in this world. And on behalf of the world, I want to be the first to tell you thank you for showing up, for being the best you that you can be, and for doing all that you can do in this world to live every day of your life as a thriving entrepreneur. Thanks for joining with us here today. I hope that over the course of this next week, you're happy, safe, warm, and loved, and that you have an amazingly great week.
Thanks for listening to Thriving Entrepreneur today. If you want to get your question answered, send an email to questions@wehelpyouthrive.com. We look forward to you joining us again next time.
Hi, my name is Steve Kidd. I am a third-generation minister, an international best-selling author of multiple books, and I help people write, publish, and market their books to bestseller. In fact, there are literally thousands of people that have used the system that I created to be able to write, publish, and market their books, and now they're best-selling authors. And you're next. I just wanted to come on for a minute, say hi to you, tell you a little bit about me, introduce myself, and tell you I know the world is waiting on your message, and I would be so honored to be part of sharing your message with the world. Go to AskSteveKid.com and schedule a time to talk today.